Tessa from Mama's Geeky here. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel.
Guys, thanks for taking the time today. I'm Tessa with mamasgeeky.com. Congratulations on this show. I'm really looking forward to season 3. I love the show. My question is for Jennifer. One of my favorite things about the show is all the costuming, and it's just so beautiful. So I'm curious about the references you used and your inspiration on the costuming.
Well, you know, I do always, this sort of piggybacks on that last 2 questions ago. I do always start with the period and what's real and true to the period. And then, you know, I do sort of like filter it, I think, through a contemporary lens. You know, I sort of pick and choose the details that I feel like will sit well with the modern eye. You know, some of this stuff in this period can be rather heavy, and I sort of try to keep it sort of, it's a calm, you know, light and frothy and that sort of thing. And one of the greatest challenges truly is the resources, finding the resources. I get a lot of questions about where I go to get the clothes. And surprisingly, people don't always realize that we make the bulk of them. We make all the clothes, especially for the principals. We rent stuff for background and that sort of thing. But all of Emily and Lavinia and like Mrs. Dickinson, they're all things that are, and the menswear, they're all made. And so finding materials, fabrics, trims, buttons that are appropriate to the period is a real challenge. And we go all over the world really to find that stuff. And I'll often pair things with some little bits of antique trim or real buttons from the period. Like those things survive and can be used and add a real authenticity to the clothes. But fabrics, we have to find contemporary fabrics that have that sort of period feel. And that's really sort of where I can kind of, you know, find that happy medium. Like for example, Sue's gold dress, that is like a French lame with real metal threads. And that would not necessarily have been something that was available in the period, but it sort of sat well and felt right. So we just went for it.
I'm wondering, how did the pandemic affect anything? Are there any challenges you guys had to overcome with filming either the finishing up the end of season 2 or now with season 3 for any of you?
Well, we were lucky to have finished season 2 just as the pandemic began. So I think there might have been some challenges in post. I feel like I went to go see, Elena, the showrunner, invited me to come see the opera episode as it was being finished up. And I remember in that moment, there were discussions about, can somebody fly out here? How do we have to fly back? It was just sort of starting. But I will say that for me, aside from all the challenges that I think we're all pretty aware of with dealing with COVID, for me, the greatest challenge has been that so many of these vendors that we have used, so many of the resources that we turn to have closed or moved out of New York or moved away, it's becoming, as I mentioned, it's always been hard to find all these little treasures that we use to make the clothes so special. But I mean, it's really tragic right now. There's like only, there used to be 50 beautiful trim stores in New York. New York used to be the place where you can get anything. And I'm starting to see that really change, especially, you had been seeing it, and especially now with it's like getting wiped out. That's a sour note.
Yeah, no, we experienced the same thing. And I'm sure our set decorator, Marina Parker, would say the same thing, because they have to source a lot of detailed things. And it is harder and slower. And a lot of the kind of unique vendors locally have had trouble, for sure.
Oh, I would say on the flip side, though, with Broadway having shut down, we have, we do quite a lot in-house with our amazing tailor department, but we have been able to really utilize some of the commercial shops in New York. As sometimes we'd approach them and say, can you, in 2 minutes, put together a bunch of, opera dresses, and they'll say, no, we're too busy, but now they actually all have some time. So it's been nice to be able to collaborate with some of those people, especially for me. I come from a theater background, so it's going to visit old friends and working with them.
Yeah, hello, how are you? Thank you so much for hosting this and for inviting me. I have a question regarding the music for the composers. Ian Hultquist and drum and lace, and the music supervisor, DeVoe Yates, may also jump in. My question is regarding the type of music that's been used in Dickinson. I really love the way the music is used. It brings us into contemporary times, and it was just like so witty to do that. And because the show was set in the 19th century, and bringing in the type of music that it does, like some of it is like hip hop, very contemporary sounding. And I was wondering regarding the music choices, how did you come to that idea of using contemporary music on a show with a setting in the 19th century?
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for the question. There was an initial idea from the very beginning that they wanted it to be a juxtaposition of having a contemporary sound with a period looking show. But I think the trick was exactly figuring out how to implement that. Because, at one point, I think someone was suggesting having like classical instruments, but playing hip hop, or some people were saying like it should be like an all rap score. And I think the trick for us was really just finding like that fine medium of, and I think we kind of ended up a little bit more like electro pop sounding with a little bit of hip hop influence here and there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was derived honestly from the work that DeVoe had done, with music supervision. And I think that just knowing the choices and that him and Elena, the showrunner, had kind of decided upon informed our kind of sound as well. So we knew within what boundaries we kind of could work sonically. And I think from there, otherwise we wanted to create something that, as you said, sounded contemporary and fresh, but also had nods to kind of like bigger artists, or just something that sounded familiar, just because but also different.
It was trying to. I think ultimately what we tried to do was make our score fit in between the songs without feeling like we've departed from that too much, so we could all stay in the same world and vibe for the whole season.
And we were definitely given a lot of room to experiment, which has been really fun. And it's been great to kind of like have that, to be able to, the score has evolved, and we're really excited for how season 2 turned out, and we're excited for what season 3 holds for us. I don't know if DeVoe wants to chime in and say anything else, but
yeah, I guess to talk further about that, I think before we started shooting the pilot, Elena had that was kind of her concept, was having current music with the period setting. So just to kind of bring everything into more I guess relevant to current time, so it was easier to kind of like get yourself in that world, I think.
This is for Ande and Suzy. What's it like to kind of balance what the period is, what is comfortable for the actor, and to kind of do your own thing for the series? And I guess a level of coordination so the hair and the makeup kind of go together to complete the entire picture.
So Suzy and I, we work together really well because we are both very collaborative. We both came with our own ideas, and then we would just discuss them and see what worked with what. If something didn't work, we would throw it out. If something worked, we tweaked it until we got to a good point. That's when we would present it to the actor, and then we just work with the actor to make sure they were also comfortable. In the end, we're all artists, but we're also collaborators. That's a big part of our job. And I think we were just really fortunate to have we were very in touch with each other, and we're able to collaborate well throughout the series. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm grateful as well. It was a lot of fun creating these designs and making it all work.
For the music department, that would be drum and lace and D-ones. I think my question is going to be right, beside what I asked Neil, and I think one of the things that stands out from the TV series is the dialogue. Obviously, the script, the way that the characters are being written, and then the music. What was your first reaction when you knew they were brought into the project and they would tell you, well, yeah, this is something classic, but we're modernizing. So how do you react to, okay, let's see what we can do?
So I mean, our first reaction was like, this is amazing, because of course, it would have been a very, a lot more daunting of a job, I think, to write this in the style of the time, just because I think that it would have required a much more like historically accurate depiction, obviously. So when they came to us and they told us who what the cast was, and we'd seen some of the beautiful costumes and set design, and we were just kind of like, you want us? So we were just, I think, really, really excited. And we also knew how great the songs were going to be, and it was a lot of pressure to know that we had to write something that sounded as good as, these big kind of like contemporary hits, or, songs that sound extremely good. So I think it was both exciting and extremely intimidating.
Yeah, it was just, I think it was a matter of us, once the excitement waned off, it was like, okay, can we actually like make this sound good? Can we up our production chops so that they live in the same realm as all these other songs?
Yeah, because it is score. There's some moments, especially in season 2, where it starts to become more score, like scoring the scenes, but a lot of it tends to be, like what a word that I think we both kind of hate, but it's scores, like a score song kind of thing. Yeah. So I think as we move into, more and more seasons, it'll start being a little bit more score to picture, and we'll be able to bring in more more kind of classical instrumentation. But the first reaction was we were just thrilled and really excited, and we love working on the show.
I think for me it was a similar reaction, because I think at the time I'd been working on a lot of shows that were had older sounding music, I guess, and not so much contemporary music. So for me it was kind of fun and daunting to kind of like really explore like current music and be fresh with it, but also be different than other current shows.
Yeah, I have another example that comes to mind. If you think what's been mentioned before for the opera too, for the other reasons, but that musically is, sorry, it's the phone going off in the background, but it's just such a fascinating example how the, obviously not written by you guys, but the old piece of music, and then it goes with your score and it leads to the songs. This whole is like a 10-minute part of the whole episode until she stands on the stage by herself, and it's so beautifully done musically, but also stylistically, how it combines all these different styles and things together musically. It's just fascinating. I mean, the way Sophia and Ian and then DeVoe worked that out on the musical side, and to go with everything else is just one of the most fascinating pieces of the episode from that point of view.
Oh, Hailee Steinfeld, like she's a singer and musician herself. I was wondering, do you do any collaboration with her, or do you work together at all for the music in the show?
DeVoe, go ahead.
You go.
Well, at the end of season 1, she did the final song at the end of episode 10. So we worked with her on that. And she did have like a song she sang to Ben first season, kind of live on set. Mm-hmm. I don't want to give much away about season 3, but maybe there'll be another collaboration.
Yeah, who knows? But I feel like we haven't had a chance of interacting with Hailee.
We've actually never met Hailee.
But we know that she, is an integral part in a lot of the pieces of everything. So we know that there's been times that we got a note. I remember first season that Hailee didn't like something.
It's when
we were terrified.
It's when she sings to Ben in, I can't remember which episode, when Ben's sick.
Yeah.
And she sang that song, and we actually tried putting a little bit of music underneath.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, take that out.
Yeah, that didn't fly. But yeah, we would, I think it would be great to, she's so talented, and I feel like hopefully there will be able to be a part for that. Wink, wink.
Thank you so much to all of my monetary supporters, my members here on YouTube, as well as my patrons. If you haven't joined yet, please consider doing so. We have some really awesome perks, including a monthly Zoom meeting where we get to talk face to face. Thank you again to everyone who supports me.